Barry Perryman is a professor of rangeland ecology and management at the Department of Agriculture, Veterinary, and Rangeland Sciences at the University of Nevada-Reno. Professor Perryman has appeared on the front page of the Sunday edition of the San Francisco Chronicle, Fox News, National Geographic, and on television as a natural resource specialist, and has received both gubernatorial and White House appointments, including the National Wild Horse and Burro Advisory Board and the White House Council on Wildlife Policy. His teaching and research represent a broad spectrum of interest, including sage grouse health and habitat, invasive species management, sagebrush demography, wildlife rehabilitation, mined land reclamation, and plant community dynamics. Professor Perryman is also an award-winning novelist and columnist, most recently receiving the Will Rogers Medallion for Western Humor. Raised on a small Texas ranch with time spent as an oil field roughneck, an administrator for a Fortune 100 oil field service company, and an academician, Professor Perryman brings a unique and interesting perspective to natural resource management issues of the West. Please join me in welcoming him to the stage.
Thank you so much. It sounds like I'm hot on my mic there, doesn't it? Let's do a magic trick. Bet you didn't think you would be doing a magic trick this morning. We're going to do a magic trick together. It's an interactive magic trick, okay? So I need you to do this. Take your hands. Indulge me. Take your hands. Do this. Point your thumbs down. Okay, everybody got that? We doing okay on this side of the room? Okay, all right. Now, what I want you to do is I want you to do what I do, but I want you to focus on me first. Okay, you ready? Now look at me. You got your arms out? Look at me. You ready? What I want to talk to you about, if you want to go ahead and get the slides up there, what I want to talk to you about this morning is not a magic trick. It's just an accumulation of things that I've learned over the last 30 or so years that are common sense and I think useful anyway. Make sure all of our equipment is good. We're up and running. Okay. In resource conservation and indeed in life, in many facets of life anyway, if you're going to have something that you've never had, if you're going to obtain something that you've never obtained, if you're going to achieve something that you've never achieved, you are going to have to do something that you've never done. I'll say that again. If you're going to have something that you've never had or going to achieve something you've never achieved, you are going to have to do something that you've never done. Most of us, including me, are working stiffs. We're not exceptional people. We're just normal, everyday people. We're not endowed with great gifts in any way. And so you have to do something. You have to physically spend the energy to get up and move around and do something. Because if you don't do it, guess who's going to do it? That's right. Nobody's going to do it. Nobody is going to do it. If you want to see Przewalski horses, you must travel to the remotest parts of China, and I mean remote. If you want to stand on a fortress built by Alexander the Great, you must go to Uzbekistan. You must move. You must get up. You must move around. And so I'm going to give you 3 little things this morning that you can think about as you go throughout your day and go throughout your life that will help you get to the point of doing something that you have never done, achieving something that you have never achieved in natural resource conservation. And the first one is this concept, or what I call it, look at the world from the oblique. Uh, 1967, some of us remember 1967. It was the summer of love. And something happened that summer that changed my life. Not that. I know you guys, so I was already popping in. I heard something on the radio that summer, actually that fall, that really changed the way that I saw the world. Now, I'd cut my teeth on country greats, you know, like Marty Robbins and Lefty Frizzell. But by 1966, they had this thing called underground radio in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. Some of you may have had that in your areas of the world, of the country as well. And they played things that I had never heard of. And one of the first times I had it on that radio station, I heard something that I was like, what was that? It was a little tune called Interstellar Overdrive, and then another one they played right after that was called Lucifer Sam, which was a song about one of the band members' cat. But it was this sort of James Bond kind of theme thing. And yes, it was Pink Floyd. In those days, they were known as the Pink Floyd Sound. And I knew, I don't know what happened, but I knew at that moment, the minute I heard Interstellar Overdrive, just think of that title. I've been listening to Lefty Frizzell. And then I hear Interstellar Overdrive. What in the world is that? And then it comes on. And you might want to get that on your playlist tomorrow, Sarah. And so I heard this, and I knew at that moment in time that it was okay to look at the world differently than the world I was certain of was trying to regimentally make me see it, okay? It was okay to see the world differently. It was okay to do that. There were different things in the world and different approaches, different viewpoints, different angles made the difference and would make the difference and have continued to make the difference. I'll let that picture soak in for a minute. You do see what's going on there, right? If this is the only view of a cow that you ever see in your life, you're going to have a twisted picture of a cow. And this is one of our former vet students here. This is the first time she ever had done this, and that look on her face is just like, I can't believe I am doing this. But you have to kind of back up from problems and back up from challenges and look at them from different angles. Take this critter here, this Asian Ibex up in the Tian Shan Mountains in China. How would you explain this animal to someone who had never seen it and didn't know that this picture was taken from 2 miles away through a spotting scope with an iPhone over the eyepiece, and he's watching us? He's standing on an angle about like this. The perspective is very difficult to see in the picture, but he's standing on an angle like that. But if you can't describe the habitat that this animal lives in, the context that this animal lives in the Tian Shan Mountains, where his elevational range is about from 10,000 feet to about 15,000 feet. And every step that they take is either up or down. And if they want to go to water, they've got to go down somewhere to around 7,000 feet to get a drink of water. If you don't understand that, how are you going to explain that animal to someone if you don't understand the context? And the only way to get a hold of context is to look at things from the oblique, to kick the tires and walk around the car a little bit and look for dents, so to speak. Okay? So look at the world from the oblique. That will help you understand context. Number 2, surround yourself with people that will help you be successful. Surround yourself with people that are better than you are at what they do. That gives you an opportunity and something to look up to and to achieve for and to try to get to their level. Many of us feel this way. I'm certain there's some folks in the room this morning that feel this. They're like, they don't know, and you feel sort of insignificant, and it's kind of scary out there. And so, surround yourself with people that will help you be successful at what you're doing. Sometimes, life and our professional jobs just feel like we're looking out a window through this little narrow view of the world. You've got to get outside of that, and you've got to surround yourself once again with people that are going to help you be successful. In another life, I used to referee women's NCAA Division I volleyball and men's NCAA Division volleyball. And I'm telling you what, when you get to a men's level Division I NCAA volleyball game, you better be on your game, or you are going to get screamed at in a very, very not so pleasant way, I guess I should say. So, surround yourself with people that help you be successful. That means surround yourself with people that know more than you know about the subject and the challenge that you're dealing with. Surround yourself with people that'll go to Tin Shan Glacier with you. Con them into it. Do whatever you have to do. Pay them off. Buy them a drink, whatever it takes. But be sure that you surround yourself with professional people that are smarter than you are. And number 3, be persistent with your craft. Be persistent. I was fortunate a number of years ago to spend the afternoon with the great Olympic champion Billy Mills, 10,000 meter champion at the 1964 Tokyo Olympics. And he has quite a story. He's a member of the Lakota Nation. And he says every passion has its destiny. Every passion has its destiny. And I believe that's absolutely true. Sometimes your passion doesn't end up with the destiny that you wanted it to end up with. Sometimes your destiny is passed on to the next generation, and the next generation takes that passion and moves it on and achieves maybe achieves the results that you wanted to achieve but were not able to. You look at this tree right here. I guarantee you there was more than one generation that saw that tree grow. And that tree grew to the point where it is now. But it was persistent. It grew persistently across generations. And sometimes these conservation challenges that we have today are even remnants or children of conservation issues that were initiated or that were recognized 100 or 150 years ago. And we're still dealing with them today in one way or another. So be persistent and make sure that your passion is passed on to the next generation and the next generation. I aggravate my granddaughter all the time. I make her listen to Pink Floyd too. I aggravate her all the time just to make sure that she knows that there's something here that's real and needs to be taken care of, and that she needs to be aware of it. So be persistent. The first time I went to Washington, D.C., I don't think this is a picture of the first time, but the first time I got to Washington, D.C., I was kind of like the picture of the dog and the sheep a while ago. What in the world am I doing here? But after a while, after you persist and you continually persist in whatever it is that you're doing, eventually they start calling you, and then you have to start saying, no, I don't want to come to Washington, D.C. But you have to be aware that in your persistence, sometimes, and quite often, you might find a novel solution to a problem. Some people have indicated that this might be a novel solution to a problem. You can put your own caption down there, however you want to do it. But persistence can do that. just because you're there all the time and there so much, you may discover something that was there all the time, but you just never saw it from the oblique before. And persistence over time, once you get, as Penn and Teller say, the great magician team, once you've done something 10,000 times, then you can start talking about maybe you're getting better at it. And that's really what it takes in life. It takes time and it takes hours. And you can only do that by being persistent. And once you become persistent, or once you are persistent for long enough, then all kinds of challenges, all kinds of weather you can take on. No matter how cold it gets, no matter how much it snows, no matter how many times people want to abuse you in the press in one way or another, you can take that. Your skin becomes thicker and becomes hardened, and you become tough like these Mugo pine trees. Okay, those are the three things. You remember them? Look at the world from the oblique. Look at things from different angles, from different positions. Surround yourself with people who will help you be successful, and be persistent in your craft. Okay, but this is a picture of my paternal grandfather here. He was born in 1861. Yes, 1861. I was born in the 50s, but I was raised in the 30s. He was born in 1861 on what was at that time the old Cherokee Congressional Reservation in Middle Tennessee, in Cannon County there. And so we have a strong tradition of storytelling, of oral tradition in our family that has come down to me, and I'm hopefully passing it on to my children and to their children. And so I want to give you, I think I'll just give you one, time permitting this morning. I'll just tell you one story, and we'll emphasize that and wrap this up for you. I want to talk about opportunity. Opportunity. There was a bear, an old bear that sat by his cave, waiting for something to come along so he could kill it and eat it. And so he sat there for a very, very, very long time, and nothing came by. There was just nothing. And he began to grow old and weak and sick, and still nothing came by. And it got to the point where it was very serious. He had lost so much weight, he had lost so much strength that he just could not endure that anymore. And he thought he would just lay down and just die. And as he laid down to do that very thing, he heard off in the distance, very far off in the distance, the sound of a crick. We call them cricks in Nevada. It's a creek in your neck of the woods, probably. He heard the sound of this creek, heard the water, and he thought to himself, I will go to that creek, and maybe there will be some fish. And if there is, I will eat those fish. So he made the decision to move toward the sound of that water that he heard. And he was really weak. He was so weak that he could barely walk. And at times, he had to just lay on his belly and just crawl. He just was so sick and so weak from not eating for so long. And on his way, he came across some leaves and some roots. And so He ate them. He ate the roots, he ate the leaves, and he rested for a bit, and he felt stronger. Suddenly he felt stronger. And so he got up and he began to make his way toward the river again. It was a long, 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 tortuous journey, but he made it. He finally made it to the river. And he crawled down to the edge of the water, and he saw fish in a little riffle pool there. And he smelled the beaver castor in the willows, and it strengthened him. And he reached into the pool and he grabbed a fish on his claw, and he ate the fish, just gorged it right down. He reached in, he got another, gorged it right down. He ate maybe 5, 10, maybe 20 fish before he was over. And he laid back and he felt strong. Felt strong. And he knew he had made a good decision. And as he was laying there thinking about what he had done and what the journey had done to him and done for him, he caught a smell on the breeze, and it smelled like a berry patch. And he said to himself, you know, I will go to this berry patch. I will follow this smell on the wind, and I will go to this berry patch, and I'll have some berries. So he was stronger now. He'd eaten all the fish. He'd eaten some roots and some leaves. He felt good. He felt strong, so he got himself up. And he began to follow the smell of this berry patch. And it was a very faint smell because it was a long way off. It was just a little bit on the breeze. But he followed it, and as he got closer, the smell got stronger and stronger and stronger. And finally he came up over a little saddle and looked down into this little riparian area down there, and it was the biggest berry patch a bear had ever seen. It was just like, wow. And so he walked down the hill, got down to the berry patch, and he just started just shoving berries in his cake hole as fast as he could. He rolled around in the berry vines, the canes. He's got it all over his face. He had it all over his butt. He was just all over his back, just rolling in it, eating, just gorging himself on all of these berries. And once he had eaten all that he could eat, he laid on his back and he looked up at the sky and he said, I'm glad I took the opportunity to get some food for myself today. I'm glad I took the opportunity to get some food for myself today. He realized that if he depended on somebody else, he was going to be disappointed. So he took the initiative. And he was no longer sick. He was no longer weak. And he felt good. He felt like he had achieved something. And so with that, I want to say you are not insignificant. You're not insignificant. Again, as I said earlier, most of us are not born with special superpowers. Like, seems like everybody in the movies now has some superpower. They don't have any like regular people in movies anymore. We're not endowed with great gifts of one kind or another. But if we are persistent, if we surround ourselves with people that will help us be successful, and if we look at things in different ways, we can be okay. We can do all right. We can do what needs to be done if, and only if, you take advantage of those opportunities. If you don't take advantage of the opportunities, then you'll become weak, and you'll become sick, and you'll become unable to do what you know needs to be done when it comes to your natural resource challenges and conservation challenges. So, I say all that to say this. Remember that in your professional and in your personal life, to have something that you've never had, whatever that may be, whether it's in your professional life or personal life, or achieving something with respect to natural resource conservation, to have something you've never achieved, that you've never obtained, that you've never had, you must do something that you've never done. You must do something that you've never done. So with that, I thank you. Have a great, great rest of your meeting. I think I've kept you on time, pretty close. And thank you for having me. Thank you very much.